The rain was falling hard on the highway as Leah drove alone through the dark. Her windshield wipers moved quickly, but it was still hard to see. She had been on the road for hours. Her body tired, her heart even more tired. All she wanted was a hot drink, a little rest, and maybe a quiet corner to breathe in. She spotted a small bar on the side of the road. The sign said Rusty Iron Bar, and the parking lot was filled with bikes. Still, she didn't care. She wasn't looking for trouble, just peace. She pulled in, parked her car, and stepped inside. The place smelled like smoke, old beer, and leather. Heavy rock music played in the background. Men with tattoos, long beards, and loud voices filled the room. Leah walked slowly to the bar counter and asked for a coffee. Some of the bikers looked at her and laughed. A woman alone in a place like this? They found it funny Leah ignored them. She just wanted her coffee and maybe 10 minutes to relax. The bartender, an older woman with short gray hair, gave her a kind smile and poured the coffee. "Careful with that crowd," she whispered. "They like to play games." Leah nodded but didn't answer. She was used to being strong, to keeping her head high. Even when the world was rough, she sat down at a small table near the window, sipped her coffee slowly, and stared outside at the rain for a few minutes. She felt safe, even a little calm, but peace doesn't last in places like this. One of the bikers stood up and walked over. He was big, bald, with a thick beard and cruel eyes. His name was Tank, the leader of the group. He slammed his beer bottle on her table and grinned. Well, what do we have here?" he said loudly. "A lost kitten?" His friends laughed from behind him. Leah stayed calm. "I'm just here for a drink," she said. Tank leaned closer. "Then drink with me," he said. "It's rude to sit alone when men are watching." Leah shook her head. "No, thank you." But Tank didn't move. "Come on," he said louder. "Let's see who can save you." More laughter echoed around the bar. Leah stood up to leave, but Tank stepped in front of her. The room went quiet except for the music. The bartender looked nervous but didn't interfere. Then from the corner of the bar, a man stood up. He had been sitting in the shadows all this time, wearing a long black coat, boots covered in dust, and a calm expression. He walked slowly toward them. Not in a rush, not in fear, he didn't say a word. Just walked up behind Leah and gently placed a hand on her shoulder. Tank turned and laughed. "Who the hell are you?" The man didn't answer. Instead, he removed his coat slowly, carefully. The bar fell into silence as he turned around and showed his back. There, across his skin, was a massive tattoo, an eagle in full flight. Wings spread wide from shoulder to shoulder, its eyes fierce, its claws open like it was ready to attack. But it wasn't just the tattoo, it was what it meant. The room changed. The bikers who had been laughing now looked away. Uncomfortable, Tank stepped back a little, confused. Whispers moved around the bar like wind. "Is that him?" "It can't be." "Is that the guy from the old stories?" The bartender dropped a glass, her hands shaking. She stared at the tattoo like it was something holy. Leah looked at the man, unsure. She had never seen him before. But something about him felt familiar, safe. He looked down at her and finally spoke. "You're not alone," he said quietly. His voice wasn't loud, but it was full of power. Tank didn't reply for the first time. The big biker had no words, no jokes, no threats, no laugh. Leah didn't know what had just happened. She only knew one thing. This night had changed. And the man with the eagle tattoo had just silenced an entire bar. Nobody in the bar moved, nobody dared to blink. It was as if time had stopped the moment the man removed his coat. The eagle tattoo on his back looked alive in the dim light. Wings wide, head tilted, eyes sharp like it was guarding him, and maybe her too. Leah stared, confused and stunned. Who was this man? Why did everyone look so afraid of just a tattoo? She looked around, hoping someone would explain. But all the tough bikers, all the loud mouths now sat frozen silent, like schoolboys caught by the principal. Tank's face had changed, the grin was gone, replaced by something else, hesitation. He tried to speak, but his voice cracked. Is this supposed to scare me? But the words were weak, like they didn't belong to him. The man didn't answer, he didn't need to. He slowly turned around and looked straight at Tank. His eyes weren't angry, they weren't kind either. They were calm, like he'd seen worse things than this bar could ever hold. Leah stepped back and whispered, "Thank you." He nodded once. Still saying nothing, "Who are you?" she asked softly. He looked at her for a moment, then finally spoke. "Just someone who remembers a promise." His voice was deep, slow, and steady. The kind of voice that didn't need to shout to be heard. It carried weight, like it had walked through storms and come out stronger. Leah didn't understand, but her heart felt something shift. This man wasn't just strong. He was dangerous in a way that protected, not harmed. Tank tried to laugh again, but it didn't work. One of his crew whispered in his ear, something about the eagle tattoo. Tank's eyes widened for just a second before he covered it with anger. "This ain't over," he growled. But even his threat sounded empty now. He backed away slowly, still staring at the man, then grabbed his beer and sat down. Defeated, the man turned back to Leah. "Are you all right?" he asked. She nodded, though her hands were still shaking. He looked at her coffee, now cold. "Let's get you a fresh one," he said, and led her to a booth in the corner, the same one he'd been sitting in. It was dark, away from everyone else, like it was his world, untouched by noise. Leah sat across from him, still unsure of what had just happened. The bartender brought over a new cup of coffee. Hands trembling slightly, she didn't charge them, just gave a small bow of respect toward the man and walked away. Leah watched in confusion. Why is everyone acting like they've seen a ghost? The man finally sighed, like he had been holding something inside for too long. "Because they have," he said. "They've heard stories. Stories they thought were just tales told around fires and bar stools." He looked out the window as the rain continued to fall. Stories of a man who disappeared after the war. Stories of a man who walked away from violence, but never forgot how to stop it. Leah listened closely. "You?" she asked quietly. He nodded once. "I didn't want this," he said, "but your father once saved my life." Leah's heart skipped. "My father?" she whispered. "You knew him?" He nodded again, his eyes softening just a little. "I served with him a long time ago. He was brave, quiet and kind. When he passed, I made a promise." Leah felt her throat tighten. She had lost her father in an accident years ago. He had never talked much about his military past. She always thought he was just a mechanic and a good man. But now a stranger, marked with an eagle, was saying her father once saved his life. "What promise?" she asked, her voice barely above a breath. The man looked her in the eye. "To make sure his daughter was never hurt. To protect you from shadows you didn't even know existed." For a moment, Leah couldn't speak. A stranger, a ghost from the past, had been watching over her. She felt a strange warmth rise in her chest. Not fear, but safety. Not protection from a weak place, but from strength and silent love. She looked around the bar again. All the loud men were now quiet, sipping slowly, eyes low. Not because they were weak, but because they knew power when they saw it. And the man with the eagle tattoo didn't have to roar to lead. He just had to stand. The rain outside kept falling, like the sky refused to stop crying. Inside the bar, no one dared to laugh, no one dared to joke. Even the music had been turned down low. The man with the eagle tattoo had changed everything. He hadn't lifted a fist, hadn't raised his voice. But the power in that ink, the silence in his stare, it was louder than any fight. Leah sat across from him in the shadowy booth, still trying to understand. "Who are you, really?" she asked again. "I mean, what does that tattoo even mean?" She pointed at the eagle across his back. The man leaned forward, hands folded on the table. He looked down for a moment, like he was pulling a memory from deep inside. "They call it the mark of the fallen wing," he said quietly. Leah waited, unsure if she should ask more. "The ones who wear it," he continued, "earned it through blood, through choices no one should have to make." He paused again. "It belonged to a small special group during a forgotten war. No name, no rank, no medals. Just missions no one would ever speak of." Leah swallowed. "And you were one of them?" He gave a slow nod. "We didn't join for glory," he said. "We joined because someone had to go where others wouldn't." He touched his shoulder lightly, right where the wing began. "There were only 6 of us," he said. "Only 3 came home." Her eyes widened. "What happened to the others?" His jaw tightened. "They stayed behind, so we could leave," he said. "They chose to be the wall between life and death." Leah felt a chill run through her. She could almost see it now, fire, dust, the sound of gunfire, the silence after an explosion. She pictured her father there too. Younger, braver than she ever knew. "My dad was with you?" The man nodded again. "He wasn't supposed to be," he said. "He was a mechanic on base, but that night, everything went wrong. There was an ambush," he explained. "We were trapped, outnumbered, bleeding. We had no one left to call. No time. But your father didn't run. He found a rifle, jumped on a truck, and drove straight into the hellfire. Leah's heart pounded. She had never heard this story. Her father was quiet, always kind, always tired. He fixed cars, built birdhouses, and made pancakes on Sundays. But now she saw him differently, like he carried a whole war inside and never spoke of it. The man looked at her with eyes full of respect. Your father pulled us out, he said. He saved us when we thought we were finished. He took a bullet in the shoulder, but he smiled the whole way back. Leah felt tears in her eyes. She blinked them away, but they came anyway. Why didn't he tell me? The man smiled gently. Because heroes don't need to speak, he said. They just live quietly and love loudly. She nodded, wiping her face with the sleeve of her hoodie. What happened after that? The man leaned back in the booth, eyes far away now. We made a vow, he said. We swore that if any one of us died, the rest would protect what mattered most to him. You, he added, looking at her. I kept track of you from afar. When your father passed, I came to the funeral. I was the man in the back, the one who left before anyone noticed. Leah remembered now. She had seen a man with a hat pulled low, standing under a tree far from the crowd. She never asked who he was, never thought about it again until now. I never thought I'd need to step in, he continued. You were doing fine, but when I saw Tank corner you tonight, I knew it was time. He took a deep breath. A promise is a promise. From the other side of the bar, someone whispered to a friend, That's the eagle. I thought he was dead. Why would he come here? But no one dared speak louder than a whisper. The legend was real, and he was sitting right there, drinking coffee with a young woman he had vowed to protect. Leah smiled through her tears. She didn't feel scared anymore. She felt proud, strong, connected to a father who had always loved her in silence. And now, sitting across from her was the last gift her father left behind. A guardian, a living legend, and the man with the eagle on his back. Tank sat in the corner of the bar, gripping his beer bottle tight. His jaw was clenched, and his leg bounced with nervous energy. He had never been humiliated like this before. Not in front of his crew, not in front of a woman. The whole bar had turned cold when the stranger with the eagle tattoo stepped in. And now no one even looked at Tank the same way. The power he once had melted in seconds. He glanced at the man again, the quiet one sitting with Leah. They weren't laughing. They weren't whispering, they were just talking. Like old souls reconnecting. Tank hated that. He hated the silence, the respect, the way the others now looked at him like he was the joke. You gonna let him do that to you? One of his guys finally whispered. Tank didn't answer, he just stood up slowly, his muscles tight, his pride burning. He walked toward the booth with heavy steps, each one louder than the last. The whole bar turned their heads again. Holding their breath, no one dared stop him. But no one dared support him either. Leah noticed him first, her body stiffening. The stranger didn't turn around. He knew, he felt Tank coming, but he didn't flinch. Tank stopped just behind him, breathing hard. You think you're something special? Tank growled. No reply. You walk in here, flash your tattoo like it means something? Still no reply. Tank's voice got louder. That was a long time ago, old man. You're not in a war now. This is real life. Finally. The stranger turned his head slightly, just enough to speak. No, he said calmly. This is the war. And you're the kind of man who always thinks he's the strongest until someone stronger walks in. The words hit harder than a punch. Tank's face turned red. His hand tightened around the bottle. He raised it, ready to swing. But the stranger moved before anyone could blink. In one smooth motion, he stood up, turned, and caught Tank's wrist midair. There was no sound. No dramatic crash, just stillness, like time had stopped again. Then the stranger whispered something that only Leah and Tank could hear. Your hands ever touch her again, he said. And I'll remind you what fear tastes like. His grip tightened just slightly, and Tank's knees buckled. The bottle dropped to the floor with a dull thud. The stranger didn't even look angry. He looked disappointed, like a teacher watching a student fail the same lesson again. He let go, and Tank stumbled back, holding his wrist like it was made of glass. Leah stood frozen, shocked by the speed, the control. She had never seen anything like that. Not in real life, not even in movies. Tank looked around and realized no one was coming to help him. His crew stared at the floor, avoiding eye contact. The bartender was already calling someone on the phone. Maybe the police, maybe not. Either way, Tank knew. He had already lost. This ain't over, he muttered. Backing away, the stranger just watched him go. You already said that, he replied calmly. But this is your last line. Tank turned, pushed the door open, and disappeared into the night rain. The sound of his motorcycle starting up echoed through the silence, then faded away. The bar was quiet for a long moment. Then someone at the back clapped once, softly, carefully, then another and another, until the entire room gave a slow, respectful round of applause, not loud, not wild, just real. The stranger turned back to Leah, who was still standing beside the booth. She looked at him with wide eyes, full of questions, full of awe. You didn't even hit him, she whispered. I didn't need to, he replied. Some battles are won before they start. They sat down again. The mood in the bar completely different now. People returned to their drinks, but the energy had changed. No more mocking looks. No more laughter at her expense, only quiet respect for her, and for the man who stood without needing to raise a fist. Leah looked at him and asked, Did you really come all this way just to protect me? The stranger smiled faintly. I didn't come to save you, he said. I came to remind you that you were never alone. Outside, the storm had started to fade, but inside Leah's heart, something had just begun. A new understanding, a connection to the past, and a growing strength inside her chest that she never knew she had. The rain had slowed outside, but inside Leah's mind a storm had just begun. She sat across from the man with the eagle tattoo, staring at him like he was a puzzle only her father could solve. So much had happened in just one night. Too much. Her heart was still racing, her hands cold even while holding the warm cup of coffee. She leaned forward and asked softly, Who are you? Really? The man didn't speak right away. He looked out the window like he was somewhere far away again. Then he turned his eyes back to hers and gave a tired smile. I've had many names, he said. Some I gave myself. Others were given by people who hated or respected me. But the name that matters most, he paused, was given by your father. Leah blinked. My dad gave you a name? Yes, the man nodded. He called me brother. That was before he saved my life. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small, flat tin. Inside it was a worn photograph. Faded with time, Leah leaned closer and gasped. It was her father, younger, smiling with a group of men in dusty uniforms. And there, standing beside him, was the man sitting in front of her now. But younger too, with the same calm eyes, and even then that same stillness. I never saw this picture before, she whispered. No one did, the man said. We never took many. Being seen meant being remembered, and we weren't supposed to exist. Leah touched the edge of the photo gently. So my dad was part of something bigger, something secret. Yes, he said. But he never wanted praise. He was the kind of man who could carry the weight of the world and still kneel down to fix a child's bike. Leah smiled through a tear. That's exactly the kind of dad he was. The man placed the tin back into his jacket carefully, like it was made of gold. I wasn't supposed to get close to anyone again, he said. I had lost too many people, watched too many die. But when your father passed, I went to his funeral. I saw you standing there holding your mother's hand, trying to be strong, and I made a silent promise right then. Leah looked at him, her voice shaking a little. What promise? How to watch from a distance, he said, to protect if needed. I never wanted to interfere in your life. You were doing fine, until tonight. She nodded slowly. Everything now made sense. The feeling she used to have sometimes that someone was watching but never in a threatening way. The stranger who once helped change her flat tire and vanished before she could say thanks. The man at the grocery store who gave her a flashlight after the city lost power. It had always been him. Leah put a hand on her chest, where her heart was pounding hard. You've been there the whole time. Yes, he said simply. I never left. She looked around the bar again. The energy had changed. People were still talking quietly, but there was no more mockery, no more danger. The man across from her had made a room full of dangerous men step back with nothing more than presence. What do I call you then? She asked. What's your name now? He thought for a moment. My real name doesn't matter anymore, he said. You can call me Eagle. Everyone else does. Eagle, she repeated. Trying it out, it felt strange yet fitting. A man who flew through fire, who saw things from above, who carried memory like wings, silent but powerful. She looked at him again and asked one more thing. Why did you never come to us after he died? His eyes lowered. Because I felt like I failed him, he said. I wasn't there when he needed me most. He saved me, and I didn't get to return the favor. I didn't feel like I had the right to enter your world. But tonight you did, Leah said. You saved me. He smiled, just barely. Then maybe the promise wasn't broken, he whispered, just delayed, for a while. They sat there in silence, no more questions, no more fear. Just two people sitting in the quiet corner of a bar, where truth had finally found a voice. Outside, the rain had stopped. The clouds began to part, and a soft light from a street lamp touched the window like a warm hand. And for the first time in years, Leah didn't feel alone, because now she knew someone had always been there, watching, protecting, loving her from the shadows. A man with a scarred heart, a sacred promise, and an eagle flying forever on his back. Leah stepped outside the bar, breathing in the cold night air. The rain had stopped, but the air was still thick with silence. She stood by her car, her hand resting on the door, but she didn't open it. Her heart was still beating fast, not from fear anymore, but from something else. A fire had been lit inside her. And for the first time in her life, she didn't want to run from it. She looked over her shoulder, back toward the bar door inside that building. A girl had been humiliated, laughed at, pushed around, but now, that same girl had heard the truth about her father. She had seen what strength looked like in silence. She had met the man who stood like a wall between pain and peace, and she wasn't afraid anymore. Eagle stood behind her, calm as ever. He didn't speak, didn't try to stop her. He just watched, like he always had. What are you thinking? He finally asked. Leah turned to him, her eyes steady. I'm going back in, she said. I need to. Eagle tilted his head slightly. Why? Because I don't want the last thing they remember about me to be fear, she said. I want them to see strength too, not just yours. Eagle gave a slow nod of approval. You have your father's heart, he said, soft but unbreakable. Leah smiled. And this time it wasn't a nervous one, it was the kind that came from deep inside. She pushed open the bar door and stepped inside. The music had returned, but it was softer now. The crowd was quieter, some heads turned. Surprised to see her back, others looked away, ashamed. She walked slowly toward the center of the room, not rushing, not hiding. The bartender looked at her with wide eyes. Are you all right, sweetie? I'm fine, Leah said, but I have something to say. She stepped onto the small wooden platform near the jukebox, where musicians sometimes played on weekends. It wasn't high, but it was enough to be seen. Eagle stayed near the door, his arms crossed, watching but letting her speak for herself. Leah took a deep breath. Her voice shook at first, but she didn't stop. Tonight I came in here for a simple cup of coffee, she began. I didn't ask to be laughed at, touched, or insulted. I didn't ask for help either. But someone helped me anyway. People listened now, really listened. She continued. That man over there didn't throw a punch, didn't shout, and still changed everything. And I just found out. He knew my father. Maybe some of you knew my father too. She looked around the room, her voice growing steadier. He was the kind of man who fixed things quietly, who never told war stories or asked for thanks. He was brave in a way most people wouldn't understand. And tonight, I found out where that bravery came from. Some of the bikers shifted in their seats, ashamed of their laughter earlier. Others stared at the floor, unable to meet her eyes. I'm not here to make you feel guilty, Leah said. I just want you to know that real strength isn't about who yells the loudest. It's about who stands firm without needing to raise a hand. It's about protecting others even when no one's watching. She looked toward Eagle now, her voice softening. And sometimes, strength is keeping a promise for years without expecting anything in return. There was silence after she finished. Then a slow clap began from one of the older men near the bar. Another followed, then more, until the whole room joined in. Not out of pity, but out of respect. Even the bartender wiped her eyes with a napkin and nodded proudly. Leah stepped down and someone pulled a chair out for her, offering her a place at their table. She smiled and sat down. Not as a victim, but as someone reborn. Eagle walked over and sat beside her. You did good, he said. Leah looked at him and asked, Did you expect me to go back in there? No, he replied, but your father would have. They sat together, the light from the overhead lamps making the eagle tattoo on his back glow faintly through his shirt. It wasn't just ink, it was history, protection, and pain woven into flesh, and now Leah felt like she carried part of that symbol too. Not on her skin, but inside her spirit. Outside, the night was clearing. The moon peeked out from behind the clouds, soft and silver, and for the first time in a long time, Leah didn't feel small anymore. She felt powerful, because the bar that once broke her confidence had become the place where she found it again. The bar was quiet again, but this time it wasn't out of fear. It was out of respect. People were still talking in soft voices, glancing at Leah now and then, but not in the way they had before this time. The looks weren't mocking or curious, they were filled with something else, something close to admiration. Leah sat with Eagle at a side booth, the same booth where all of this had started. She glanced at him, then down at the table, unsure how to put her feelings into words. "So much has changed," she whispered. "And it's only been one night." Eagle nodded slowly, sipping from a fresh cup of black coffee. "It doesn't take long for truth to wake people up," he said. "Sometimes one moment is enough to shift a lifetime." She looked at him carefully. "Can I ask you something personal?" "Go ahead," he said, his voice calm, always calm. "Your tattoo," she said. "That eagle across your back, what does it really mean to you?" Eagle didn't answer right away. Instead, he unbuttoned the top of his shirt and turned slightly, letting the dim bar light reveal more of the massive tattoo. Leah leaned in. It wasn't just an eagle, each feather had lines etched into it, names in tiny script, symbols, dates, and scars. At the center of the eagle's chest was a single word, written in small, neat letters, Michael. Her breath caught. "That's my dad's name," she whispered. Eagle nodded without looking at her. "Every feather is for someone I served with," he said. "Each one of them gave a part of themselves. Some gave everything. I carry them with me, because they can't speak anymore." He turned back to face her. "Your father's name is closest to my heart," he said, "because he's the reason I still have one." Leah's eyes filled with tears again, but this time she didn't wipe them away. She let them fall quietly. "I wish I knew this side of him," she said. "He never talked about the war or what he did, or the people he knew." Eagle gave her a soft smile. "He didn't need to," he said. "He lived it in the way he raised you. In every quiet sacrifice, every late-night shift, every lesson he gave you without words." Leah looked down at her hands. "I always thought he was just tired," she said. "I never knew he was carrying so much." "He was," Eagle replied. "But he carried it well. And before he died, he made me promise one thing." Leah looked up, her eyes searching. "What was it?" Eagle reached into his coat and took out a small velvet pouch. He placed it on the table and gently pushed it toward her. Leah hesitated, then opened it slowly. Inside was a small silver pendant on a worn black cord. She held it up to the light. It was shaped like a feather, delicate but strong. On the back, engraved in careful handwriting, were the words, "For Leah, when you're ready to fly." Her lips trembled. He made this for me?" "He did," Eagle said. "He gave it to me years ago. He told me I'd know the right time to give it to you." "And tonight," Eagle said, "when I saw you walk back into the bar, stand on that stage, and speak your truth, that's when I knew. You don't need protection anymore," he added. "You're strong enough to protect others now." Leah held the pendant to her chest, her fingers gripping it tightly. She had never felt so close to her father. Not through photos, not through stories, but now, through this moment, this symbol, and the man who had kept a promise for so many years. "I don't know what to say," she whispered. "You don't have to," Eagle said. "Just wear it when you feel lost. It'll remind you who you are and where you come from." She nodded slowly, then slipped the pendant over her head. It rested just above her heart, warm against her skin. The weight wasn't heavy. It felt like courage from the bar counter. A few people raised their glasses to her, silent toasts with soft smiles. The bartender gave her a wink and mouthed, "Your dad would be proud." Leah smiled back, a full smile, one that came from deep inside. She turned to Eagle. "Will I ever see you again?" Eagle stood slowly, putting his coat back on. "Maybe," he said. "Maybe not. But you'll feel me. Whenever you're brave. Whenever you stand up when others sit down. I'll be there, in your shadow." Leah stood too, and for a long moment neither of them spoke. Then without warning she stepped forward and hugged him. It was the kind of hug that says "thank you, I understand now" and "goodbye" all at once. Eagle hugged her back gently, then walked toward the door. His step silent, he paused once, looked over his shoulder and gave a small nod, then disappeared into the night. Weeks had passed since that night at the rusty iron bar. The rain was gone, the roads were dry again, and the sky seemed a little more open than before. But something else had changed, something inside Leah. She still drove the same old car, wore the same black hoodie, and drank her coffee without sugar. But the woman behind the wheel was not the same girl who walked into that bar. Leah had become someone new, not because someone saved her, but because someone reminded her of where her strength came from. The silver feather pendant now rested quietly around her neck. It wasn't flashy, but it glowed with a power only she could feel. Sometimes late at night she would hold it and whisper, "I'm ready now, Dad." And somehow, she knew, he heard her one Friday night. Leah stopped at a small bar in another town. She was traveling for work now, helping fix up old machines in rural garages. She loved working with her hands, just like her father once did. The world still felt broken in places, but she was no longer afraid of broken things. She knew how to handle them, how to make them whole again. Inside the bar it was loud, full of strangers, laughter, and clinking glasses. The energy was wild. Young and careless, she ordered a drink, just water this time, and sat quietly in a booth near the wall. Not long after, a group of loud men entered. Big voices, big boots, same old story. One of them noticed her sitting alone and elbowed his buddy. Well, look who's hiding in the corner," he said loud enough for half the bar to hear. Someone left her courage in the parking lot. The others laughed, just like before. But Leah didn't shrink this time. She didn't lower her eyes. She stood up slowly. Like a rising tide, calm but certain, the room went quiet, not because of fear, but because of something in the way she moved. Something in the way she looked back at them, not with anger, but with control. She walked over to their table, set her water down, and said in a clear, steady voice, "Let's see who can save you." The words echoed through the room. Not loud, not cruel, just sharp and full of meaning. Like a line from a story everyone wished they'd heard before. The laughter died instantly. One of the men blinked, confused. "What did you say?" Leah smiled, not a mocking smile, but one of deep understanding. "I said," she repeated, "let's see who can save you. Because I don't need saving. But if you keep trying to embarrass women for sport, one day you'll meet someone who won't just walk away." The group fell silent, unsure how to respond. Someone from the bar clapped once, then another. Soon the whole place was buzzing. Not with mocking energy, but with quiet applause. Leah walked back to her booth, calm and proud. She sipped her water like nothing happened. But deep down she knew everything had happened. Later that night, the bartender walked over and placed a napkin beside her drink. "Don't know what your story is," the bartender said. But that was something to see. Leah just smiled. "I had a good teacher," she replied. She touched the feather pendant gently, then stood up ready to leave outside. The air was cool and gentle. She looked up at the stars, wondering where Eagle was now. Maybe miles away, maybe close by, maybe already watching her again from some corner of the world. She didn't know, but she didn't need to, because she now carried his lesson with her. Not just the story, not just the promise, but the spirit. The part of him that never shouted, never boasted, just stood tall when it mattered most. As she drove away, she passed a stretch of empty highway, the kind her father used to take on late-night drives. She rolled down the window, let the wind fill her lungs, and for the first time in years she laughed, not because she felt safe, but because she finally knew how to make herself safe. Somewhere far away, a motorcycle rumbled down a back road. A man in a dark coat with an eagle sleeping quietly under his collar smiled to himself. The wind whispered through the trees, and the world kept turning, but one thing was for sure now. No one ever laughed at her again.